What are your most disturbing/unsettling memories from your childhood? I was at a friend's house and we went to a deep creek to catch frogs and turtles. From the top of the bank we spotted a swollen dead deer covered in maggots. My friend's little brother pushed me off of the bank and I landed on the deer. It burst and kind of deflated under me. And I just laid there crying and throwing up until my friend's parents came and got me. They hosed me down in the driveway and tossed me in their pool that they had just chlorinated. Super great. Got an iPhone 4 when I turned 14 on Christmas. My dad supposedly used it before I got it. Looked onto the recently deleted photos to find over 10 pictures of my dad's genitals with his face also being in them. My mom gave me her phone to keep because she had a new one and I also adopted all of her 5,000 photos. I went through the photos and deleted way too many nudes. I had accidentally overlooked a lot of them. So 2 years later, I finally got rid of all of them. I don't think there are any left, but I'm too scared to go through my photos to make sure. My mother suddenly screaming in the middle of the night, then dragging my sister and me from our beds into the bathroom and locking the door behind her. Slamming her Bible against the door and turning off the light, then squeezing the two of us to her chest while telling us we all had to pray because a demon was outside, roaming around our apartment, looking to drag us into hell. Hysteria. Tears. Frantic prayers. Bone-deep terror. I was 10 or 11. I think. Still get shaky remembering it. Wish I could erase it from my head. Follow up please. There was no demon or anything supernatural. Though my sister and I didn't know that at the time. My mother's mental illness got worse and there were other incidents like this. We ended up homeless for a year or so before my sister and I moved in with our grandparents. Life got better. Decades passed. And we are functional and mostly happy adults now. Poking a dead body lying in the gutter with a stick. I was too young to understand what I was doing. I don't remember feeling very scared either. I never told my parents. But my older brothers have confirmed to me that it actually did happen. Back when I was in high school, my assistant principal had to walk me to my car to grab something from it that I forgot. He seemed totally fine. We were chatting and he told me to have a good afternoon. He shot and killed his wife and killed himself that same night. It bothers me that I didn't pick up on something being wrong. I couldn't have done or said anything. But it still occupies more headspace than I care to admit many years later. Was home alone once as a young kid. It was summer, so I was outside in my hammock reading Percy Jackson. We didn't have any close neighbors because we lived in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, I'm sitting there closed up in my hammock when I hear a car. Thinking it was my parents getting home. I popped my head out of the hammock and went to greet them. Turned out to be a white van with two middle-aged guys in it. I, being the dumb kid I was, said hello. The guys were kinda shocked and I then asked them if they wanted to talk to my parents. And I motioned to the cars behind our house. Now from the road you can't see, but we have two other cars parked behind our house that were our families, and they must have thought no one was home cause there were no cars in the front. Anyway, I don't remember exactly what they said, but they made an excuse and jumped back in their car and zoomed away. Didn't realize how terrified I was till after they left. Never felt the same home alone ever again. Friendly stranger stopped me at Disneyland and followed my family around for a while. Asked where we were staying. And I don't know any better as a kid. So I told them. Dude showed up with a friend at the hotel pool waiting for me. I thought to call out to the guy. But my instincts made me hold back. Still don't know if that was a child trafficker to this day. Me and my cousins were playing outside when we were around 10 to 12 years old. Some dude stopped to ask directions and one of my cousins started walking towards him. Had an immediate bad feeling and went and grabbed my cousin. At that age I was already taller than the guy and probably outweighed him by about 20 pounds. Got back into the car real quick when he saw me, not like I was tough. Just a big ass kid. Going over to a friend's house when I was maybe 10 and I caught him and his dad having a loud argument at the garage. I hid behind a nearby trash can and saw the dad pull out a gun and actually shoot his son in the leg. I freaked out and ran home to tell my parents, but nobody believed me until the police and ambulance showed up. It's hard to explain, but I saw the bullet penetrate his leg in what felt like slow motion. It still comes to mind every now and then. Edit. Kid was eventually fine. Never saw the dad again. I don't remember if any arrests were made. Saw my gym teacher sexually assaulting my middle school crush in the gym office. I was scared and didn't say anything. The gym teacher was caught eventually with another accident. But I still think about her from time to time and it fills me with shame that I was such a coward. I remember me and my brother sitting on the couch crying as we watched our parents yelling at the top of their lungs and chasing each other around the apartment, threatening to kill one another. I walked into my sister's room when I was 11. Her and our cousin were passed out on the floor in piles of vomit. Pill bottles were laying near them. There was blood all over the walls and razor blades. They didn't die. But part of me did. Watched a guy bleed out in front of me while hanging from a nail that caught him while he was falling. I don't know what haunts me more. The sound of his screams turning to crying. And then silence. Or the sight of the blood pooling up at my feet. I was 8 and I can still see it. And hear it. Like it was yesterday. Edit. Since it's being asked, I'll add some details. Basically, I grew up going to a farm with my father where he worked, and one of the farmer's older sons was up on top of their new chicken coop tending to the mesh wiring and fell through the mesh, catching on a nail on the way down. He hung there for a while. I just stood there in shock. Didn't really have a clue what was happening really. He passed before they were able to get him down. Finding the love letter my dad wrote to my now stepmom while he was still married to my mom. He talked to me that night. Said they were separating. And that he fallen in love with another woman. I remember him asking me if I picked up on clues. I said I had noticed him sleeping downstairs on the couch. The next 10 years were ugly in my family as my parents had one of the worst divorces. And fighting over custody of my younger brother. This was almost 25 years ago when I was 13. It is not something you forget easily. Probably my dad slamming me against a wall after a brutal beating and then making me lie to DYFS about it after the school saw my injuries when I was around 8. Having to crawl out my bedroom window and run to a neighbor OE night to call an ambulance for my mother, who had tried to kill herself because she couldn't handle staying with her abusive ex anymore. I was 10. Even better. My bitch of a teacher treating my likes beep for missing a bit of school the next day to go see her in the hospital, and yes, the teacher knew the reason. It begins at McDonald's. It's me age 3 and my big sister grabbing lunch together. My shoes are purple and have Disney characters on them. I'm pretty sure they have Jasmine from Aladdin on them. And I love that they're purple. We finish our food and come home and there is something wrong with Mom. Her lips are bluish purple. The same color as my sandals. She OD'd and Dad wasn't home. Someone called paramedics. And I remember them putting her on a bright reddish-orange stretcher. They made me wait in a back bedroom, but I saw them doing medical stuff. That's my first childhood memory. Taking a shortcut through the park at dusk. No one around but this large dude ahead. The man turned his head and saw me and then reduced his pace. I felt anxious but didn't really know how to react, so I kept my pace, and so we ended up walking in parallel. As I passed him by from the corner of my eye, I saw him slowly put on these black gloves. Which even then I thought was weird because it wasn't a cold day. The man was now behind me but keeping my pace, catching up with me, and I still didn't know what to do. At the point I was about to panic, two women pushing their kids in strollers came into view and the man dropped back and I sped out the park. I was too embarrassed to bring up something that made me look weak to my family. A few weeks later, a child was abducted in our area.